Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Class Name Redacted, Open De-Identification Tools and How Librarians Can Promote and Understand Them. My name is Christine Neiman-Hislop, and I'm the Data Education Librarian for NNLM Region 1. I'm joined today by Katie Pierce-Ferrier, the Data Science Strategist from NNLM Region 3, and Nikita Marapaka, the NNLM Region 3 LIS Student Intern, who helped develop this class. This is our first time teaching this class, and we value your feedback to help us in improving and making modifications before sharing the class nationwide. As many of you probably are familiar, we are from the NNLM, the Network of the National Library of Medicine. The NNLM is we are the education and outreach arm of the NLM, which is the National Library of Medicine, one of the National Institutes of Health. We work across 7 regional medical libraries to get to know communities on the ground and help those communities serve the people they know best. I'm going to turn off my camera just to conserve bandwidth and also hand things over to Nikita to get us started.
Thank you, Christine. Welcome and thank you for joining today's discussion on open de-identification tools, how librarians can promote and understand them. So today we will delve into de-identification tools, exploring their importance and how librarians can effectively use and advocate for these technologies. So for today, the learning objectives we have are defining AI, which is artificial intelligence, and NLP, which is natural language processing. And also we'll be comparing NLM Scrubber to other clinical de-identification tools and implement open de-identification tools into library instruction and outreach programs. Can you go to the next slide? So let's begin with understanding AI and machine learning. We have several AIs, but today we're just giving a short recap of few AIs. Let's start by unpacking the key concepts. Artificial intelligence or AI is the umbrella term that refers to machines designed to mimic human intelligence. So AI can be trained or designed in order to do different things. Some places define AI as making machines think like humans, but we prefer IBM's definition, which is at its simplest form, artificial intelligence is a field which combines computer science and robust data sets in order to enable problem solving. So AI is an umbrella term and it covers a wide range of tools and functions. And machine learning, which is a subset of AI, is all about using data and algorithms to enable machines to learn and make decisions. So machine learning focuses on identifying patterns and predicting future patterns. Next slide, please. So we hear a lot about algorithms on social media, content apps, and in computer science. Algorithms are the foundation of AI. Understanding these foundational elements is really crucial as we explore the specific applications and capabilities of AI. So what is an algorithm? Algorithms are basically a set of rules, statistics, or instructions that computers follow to perform tasks like identifying patterns or generating content and also to solve problems. So depending on the problem an AI is supposed to solve, the algorithm is fed training data in order to improve its functioning. Next slide, please. So natural language processing is often a type of machine learning, and there are other kinds of NLPs depending on how the model is designed and what it's supposed to do. Human languages have grammar rules, they have discernible patterns, but NLP uses these patterns in order to predict and understand or produce human language. So their model, their algorithm can be trained in order to respond to questions, to write essays, translate text into another language, or give verbal directions while you're driving. So NLP is where computer science and linguistics, which is basically the study of languages, combine. So in order to put it simply, NLP allows computers to understand and mimic human language and speech. It can perform complex computations and process large data sets much faster than any human. And then we have large language models or LLMs, which are a type of NLP since they deal with human language, but there are some key differences. Typically, NLPs are designed for very specific tasks. They have a deep but narrow understanding of the language. While LLMs are trained on massive amounts of text and are meant to produce human-like text or speech, they have a broad understanding of language but might not fully grasp the smaller nuances. So they are often meant for content generation rather than for specialized analysis tasks. Next slide, please. So to reiterate, NLP, natural language processing, takes human languages, whether that's a request typed into ChatGPT or a program trained to gauge the sentiment of the document. It analyzes that language using a complex series of algorithms and statistical inferences, and it basically provides you an answer or completes the task that you've assigned to it. This middle step is sometimes what people refer to as the black box. So unless you're highly trained in statistics or computer science, it can be really hard to discern exactly how a program is making the decisions that it's making. And there are some definite caveats to this. This system, no matter how trained or sophisticated, it still makes mistakes, hallucinates, or does any number of unwanted things. And humans still need to look over the program's output and verify if it's accurate. Next slide. So you're likely already interacting with NLP in daily life without even realizing it. So voice assistants like Amazon's Alexa and Apple Siri, predictive text in emails, Chat GPT and chatbots on customer service websites, all of these technologies employ NLP in order to understand and respond to human language. While incredibly useful, they're not without their limitations and can sometimes produce errors, highlighting the ongoing development in NLP technology. So remember that NLP and AI are rapidly evolving fields, and the technologies we've discussed today are just the tip of the iceberg. So continuously improving and expanding in its capabilities. By understanding these, we can get better understanding. So by understanding the basics of AI, ML, and also NLP, you can better appreciate the technological advancements that are becoming an integral part of our everyday lives. Now, Katie will be taking it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikita. So we've talked about what NLP is and how that it works on text and human language. Well, that also includes clinical text. So things like doctor's notes, electronic health records, patient medical histories, and other sort of qualitative text data. So natural language processing can be used to analyze, or in our example today, to de-identify this data. So the processing power of NLP programs means these tasks and actions can be run on very large quantities of data and very large data sets. So NLPs can be trained to find personally identifying information, or PII, or private health information, PHI, but there are many different types of identifiers. HIPAA actually has 18 identifiers that it considers PII. These ones that are listed on the screen are just a couple of them. So they can be broken up into direct or indirect identifiers. Direct identifiers are going to be unique to a person. If you find a person's account number, their social, their full name, you know that exact person. Biometrics is another rapidly growing field, and much of that data is considered a direct identifier because it's unique to the person. So with a person's age and zip code, with indirect identifiers, you might need multiple pieces of information to pinpoint who that person is. So you might have a person's age and zip code, or maybe their ethnicity and their occupation. You can ID them, but you need multiple pieces of information to do so. So an article by Norgiot et al. Points out that the removal of all PHI, all private health information from clinical notes is definitely challenging because the potential number of words that could be PII are limitless. We're working with a very vast amount of data, and language is infinite, so therefore the possibilities of what we're looking for is endless. De-identification is a complex task, and while there are rules to language, the possibilities in any human language are infinite. But these tools can help remove PII, but they're not infallible. So why does de-identification matter? So sharing data advances research, it aids in reproducibility, and helps determine best practices. Reproducibility is critical for advancing science. In fact, in a 2021 article, researchers were unable to obtain data for 131 out of 193 cancer biology experiments, or about 68% of these experiments they couldn't get the data for. Now that data might have been not have been shared for a number of reasons, but de-identifying can definitely be a barrier to sharing. It can be a challenge to being able to get that data out there. Tools that automate or speed up this process can make data sharing more feasible. And of course, we always want to protect patient privacy. Before you do analysis, you may want to de-identify data to better protect the privacy of the participants and just add a layer of security to your data. There's also funder mandates. More funders are mandating that researchers share their data whenever possible, but it needs to be de-identified before that can safely happen. So there's a lot of different reasons for why this is important. So we're going to do a quick knowledge check. Please go ahead and drop your answers into the chat. But what do you think natural language processing is? All right, I'm getting a couple answers, some E's, C's. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. If you answered E, that is correct. If you answered C or D, that's very close. Natural language processing includes a number of tasks, such as understanding human languages or producing or generating human language. So depending on the type of NLP, it may be more for the understanding and analysis, but it also, if it's an LLM, that is a type of natural language processing. Those are the things like the ChatGPT, but they focus more on generating human language. So remember, NLP is an umbrella term. There's many different kinds with many different specialties. And I want to stop here and see if anyone has any questions about anything that we've gone over so far. And we'll pause again later too for more questions, so this isn't your only opportunity to ask. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to talking about the actual tools and some of the challenges that we face with that. So the main tool we're going to be talking about today is NLM Scrubber. So this was developed by the National Library of Medicine, and it's in the natural language processing that's designed to identify PII, such as the ones that we talked about before. So things like name, location, age, their social security numbers. It finds that information, redacts it, and then replaces it with generic terms. So Scrubber can also be used to make clinical text data HIPAA compliant. It's meant to be used on text files only, so it doesn't work on things like images, CSV files, or Excel files. And then just a little bit more context about Scrubber and how it works. The way Scrubber is set up, it actually prioritizes privacy and being HIPAA compliant over keeping certain pieces of data. So it's going to redact more information in order to comply with that HIPAA privacy. Scrubber is designed to remove what HIPAA deems as PII. So there's other identifiers that are out there, but Scrubber only looks for what HIPAA considers PII. Other contextual information may be used to identify people, so it's important that researchers still review that data to ensure that it is truly de-identified. Scrubber has also been trained on things like medical histories, physicals, radiology, and pathology reports. So these are the type of clinical texts that it's going to work best on. We're not going to do an actual demo today, but I have some screenshots that I want to show you for how the Scrubber works. So when you're getting started, it's sometimes helpful to have a little bit of basic knowledge about the Unix shell. You may need to use the shell to open and fully execute the file when you first download it. There is a user manual and there's instructions on the Scrubber website about how to do this. And once you have it downloaded, the Scrubber has example data test files that you can test out and run through it just to get a feel for how everything works. So the first image on the left, the kind of long hot dog image, that's the configuration window. So this is the very first step when you open Scrubber. You'll select the input or the files that you want to have be de-identified. Then you'll select an output, and this is where you want those new scrubbed files to go once they've been de-identified. Now, it's also possible to create a configuration file and manipulate the tool some. You can modify the terms that it's looking for or redacting, or you can use the parameters, basic parameters as is. You don't actually have to change anything if you don't want to. So once you've set up the configuration file, you'll click de-identify data. That's the button in the middle of the second image. So de-identify data is the second step. And then you'll wait a moment for it to process, and then the open output button will be highlighted. You'll click on that, and this will open the newly freshly scrubbed text file. So this is also really great for version control because the new de-identified data file is stored in a new file folder. You'll still have the original unmodified version of the clinical text as well. So this is a sample of a patient file from clinical notes. In this example, John is having some trouble due to his snoring. And so real quick, what are some things that you think would need to be removed? I know this is a lot of text up here, but skim through. Is there any PII that stands out to you? Awesome. I've seen a couple people say names, ages, address. Yeah. With ages, HIPAA doesn't consider anything under 90 years to be HIPAA, to be private information. Only 90 plus is considered HIPAA privacy. So we'll see that a little bit in the example here. But that was some good answers. So everything in green now, that's potentially identifying information. So yeah, there's ID numbers, there's location, there's lots of names in there. All this information we would want to remove in order to protect that patient privacy. Oh, sorry, skipped ahead. Okay, so this is what it looks like after it's been through the scrubber. Everything in green is everything that's been redacted and replaced with just that generic placeholder. So now instead of John or Jill, we have personal name. Instead of April 16th, we just have date. And so this is what the clinical notes would look like after having been through the scrubber. And now I mentioned HIPAA only considers ages over 90 to be private information. So you can see here there's still the 65-year-old man. That's still in here, but I think at some point, yeah, 90 plus. Personal name, mother, personal name is 90 plus. So over 90, that gets redacted with the scrubber. So some of the benefits of using the scrubber are first and foremost that it's secure. NLN Scrubber is freely available. Anybody can download it, anybody can use it, but it's not technically an open source. So the source code for this isn't shared. However, this kind of helps make it more secure because people can't use that code as a way to kind of re-identify information or reverse engineer a way to re-identify that information that's been through it. Scrubbers also run locally, not on a cloud. So it's run and saved on your computer. It's not connected to the internet at all. So that helps make it a little bit more secure. Scrubber is also fast. According to a paper by Hyder, the off-the-shelf version of Scrubber was about twice as fast as ClindyDID or Amazon's version of a de-identifier. Many hospitals and organizations have finally had to crack down on what websites or tools that employees can access. So like Google Docs and a couple other ones, they can't get access to that. With Scrubber, the zip file is, you just download a zip file. And what you download is an interface window. It doesn't require an lengthy installation process. So it's easier for researchers to actually use and get access to. There's also, I mentioned this before, some tailoring options that you can customize it. Or researchers can just use the basic default version of it. But depending on what kind of research you're doing, you may want to keep certain identifiers. Scrubber can be configured to allow to keep some of those pieces of PII. Scrubber broadly redacts anything that it thinks might be PII. So when weighing the balance between keeping as much detail as possible and protecting privacy, Scrubber leans towards protecting privacy more. It follows the safe harbor principles and makes data HIPAA compliant. But there's a caveat to this. And that caveat is that there always needs to be some sort of human element or human oversight to this. This tool, or really any other de-identification tool, it isn't beyond reproach. They're not 100% effective 100% of the time. So despite HIPAA compliance efforts, there's still a risk of re-identification. There really needs to be a human element to this process. And ultimately, it's the researchers or PI's responsibility to evaluate if NLM Scrubber is suited for their needs and to check that the data has been fully de-identified. So I mentioned earlier that there's direct identifiers and indirect identifiers. And those indirect identifiers can be used to piece together who someone is. There may still be information in HIPAA compliant data that can be used to identify someone. So Scrubber only removes what HIPAA thinks is PII, but there's still ways that you can go back and identify a person. So any text that's been de-identified, you still need to make sure that you're really reviewing it and it can't be re-identified. HIPAA compliant and de-identified are not interchangeable terms. So the Scrubber website suggests using a data sharing agreement, or when you archive it, limiting the access as an additional protection layer. And there's several different repositories and stuff that allow you to have that access limitations. So with Scrubber, there's a Windows version and a Linux version. Scrubber can't be used on a Mac. We discovered that while we were working on this class. One of us is a Mac user, and we found out we can't use it on a Mac. But there is a Windows and Linux version. Some articles, as we were reviewing, noted that there was issues with character alignment. If I have any fellow D&D nerds out there, this isn't the type of D&D ones. But with the Scrubber, the original alignment isn't maintained after it's been scrubbed. So if you remember back, we took the name John. When it gets redacted, it's expanded out to personal name. That has a lot more characters in it. So that character alignment shifts after it's been scrubbed. One study also noted that Scrubber didn't reliably catch age, but again, it's only looking for ages over 90 since that's what HIPAA considers PII. Another study noted that it might have some trouble with names, but again, this kind of applies to just about any de-identification tool. There are over 16,000 names in the census that are either medical terms or common words. So things like April, Dallas, Austin, those names might get incorrectly noted as a date or as an address. And so I want to show you a couple real life examples of how this is used out in the real world. So the first one that I want to kind of look at is University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. They created a research data warehouse, and they're a network of over 40 hospitals with over 8,000 hospital beds. So that's a lot of medical records to go through. What they did is they used the NLM Scrubber to do what they called a best effort de-identification. And that allowed them to participate in these national data networks, including all of us. So de-identification was a crucial step before they were able to share their data back out to researchers and other organizations. So you can kind of see, this is from their article that they published. You can kind of see like they had all these resources coming in, all this different types of data. The de-identification process is they used Scrubber along with a couple other tools. And then they were able to share that back out with these other larger data sharing networks. So like I said, in this case, University of Pittsburgh did a best effort de-identification. They had a lot of information to go through and needed a really solid workflow process. They also had a data agreement to let people know what data was being shared and why. So the other kind of case example that I wanted to use was for this one, for other qualitative research. Now this one was a much more intense de-identification process. If you happen to just be like fascinated by the subject, and even if you're not, I highly recommend watching Dr. Rebecca Campbell's webinar. She did a really interesting, very important project, and she dealt with some highly, highly sensitive information about assault survivors and their interactions with the police afterwards. So there's a lot of information that could potentially re-identify these people that things like the Scrubber might not be able to capture. There's a lot more context information to this. And what she did is in her webinar, she really dives into the trade-off between protecting privacy and keeping the usability of the information and how they made some of those calls, which is something that you're going to have to do for any research project. You have to kind of weigh what's the best thing to do in these unique situations. Now, they didn't use a scrubber on this project, but this is a very extreme version of how they de-identified this information and what their process was for doing so. So again, researchers just really need to think about what sort of processes and tools are going to best suit their research needs. And there's a lot of different tools out there. They all kind of do basically the same thing, de-identify data, but sort of like a chocolate cake recipe, there's more than one way to make a cake. So these tools all approach de-identification in slightly different ways. Researchers should explore these tools and find out which ones best suit their project needs. And Christine shared a copy of the slides earlier. There's linked to all of these tools in the slides as well. So like CliniDID has a Mac version. Myth, you can also change the parameters just like in Scrubber. There's, like I said, there's all different kinds of tools out there. I do kind of want to point to two of them specifically. The first one is going to be OpenNLP. So this one isn't designed specifically for de-identification, but it does cover a broad range of NLP tasks. So it has named entity extraction, and that's what it can be used to extract these particular pieces of information. OpenNLP has an online community, including mailing lists and help documentation, and a Slack channel so you can connect with more experienced users. The other one that I want to point to is ARX. This is actually a Java user interface. So ARX can be used to identify, to assess re-identification and privacy risks. They have a model that allows you to do that. And it has several different de-identification models that you can choose from. This tool can be used on Excel or CSV files. So if you need something that works on more structured data, this might be a good one to look at. Again, there's a website with more help documentation, and the tool is available for download on GitHub. And just a couple more tools. Like I said, there's a lot of different ones out there. Some are in R, some are in Python. All of these are freely available. And like I said, the links to all of these are in the slides. Neuro NER, this uses deep learning, which is another type of AI. Data Shield is from the UK, but this is good for different types of genomics data. So like I said, they all do something a little bit differently. And just as a reminder, de-identification isn't without challenges. Whatever tools researchers decide to go with, all of them need human oversight and accountability. As with any other AI, the quality of the data you put in is the quality of the data you get out. So garbage in, garbage out. Researchers should be vigilant in handling data and protecting privacy. Data use agreements are a part of this, informing people of how their data may be used and the risks of re-identification. And kind of looking towards the future. So standardization is going to continue being a challenge. Different hospitals, different systems, different doctors, they all take different notes. Different AI tools have been trained on different data sets. I mentioned earlier that NLM Scrubber has been trained on things like medical histories, physicals, radiology and pathology reports. These are going to look very different from things like psychiatry nodes or nursing nodes, even if they're from the same hospital system. So the solution to that is, more data, more exposure. We need more models to explore all these different types of qualitative data that's out there. So these tools can be improved. We can develop new ones. The more these tools are used and the more they're developed, the better they can get at de-identifying data and the other tasks that we need them for. And we'll do one more quick knowledge check. So what does NLM Scrubber do? And again, just put your answers in the chat. I see a couple people wishing that it was B. Yes, I want an AI that will just send me cute cat pictures every day, but at least you get one or two today. So if you answered E, yes, that is correct. So just to kind of go over some of the answers, it doesn't prevent data from ever being re-identified again. These are not foolproof. They do require human oversight. Tools like NLM Scrubber or other de-identification tools, they're not going to catch everything every time, but it can remove many pieces of that PII and mitigate that risk of re-identification. No, it doesn't crawl the web. It doesn't look for cat pictures, unfortunately. But the files are not shared or stored on the cloud. Scrubber is run locally on your computer, so it makes it a little bit more secure. And Scrubber is for clinical text or unstructured data like clinical notes. It's not meant to de-identify medical forms or patient chart files or CSV files. It works just on text files. So if you answered E, that is correct. Thank you, everybody. And I'll stop again and see if anybody has any questions about the tools. I saw earlier somebody asked if there's any plans to make Scrubber available on a Mac. And so Mamet answered, not in the short term. The next version is going to be for Linux and Windows, but they will be providing a Mac version later on. So good to know. Okay, well then I think I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Christine. We can talk a little bit about promoting at the library.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Yes, now we're going to talk about how to promote and use these tools at your library. Can go to the next slide. So one place to start is by learning more about coding and programming, such as through the carpentries. The carpentries are designed as an introduction for beginners, and all of their lessons are openly licensed, and freely available, free to use. They have lessons on the Unix and also learning to use the shell, which these may help familiarize you with the command prompt and the terminal interface. And there are many ways to incorporate the NLM scrubber and these other tools in your library instruction. So for example, do you talk to your faculty or students about open data or open science? We can mention that the NLM scrubber is an openly available tool for producing more reusable and shareable data. Data identification demonstrates a challenge for producing fair data and being able to share data, but tools such as these can lead to more reusable and accessible data. You can also think about hosting a workshop to maybe demonstrating the scrubber, demonstrating one of these other tools, um, or maybe think about, you can also look at these tools as examples of how AI and natural language processing being used in libraries and how they're you can use them to augment human tasks. We can think about the ethics and responsibility around using these tools, that the AI field tools do not replace human oversight, but can be used to accomplish new tasks or improve workflows. So those are different examples. You can go to the next slide. The NLM scrubber and data de-identification touches on just so many different research topics, but you can include these in things. There are ways that you can include these things in things that you're already offering. So, for example, if you have an institutional repository, you can think about promoting your institutional repository and also how these tools can prepare data to be archived in the repository. De-identification of data is part of data management planning in the cleaning or processing phase. Protecting data privacy is important, especially in health science related areas. So talking about data de-identification, PHI versus PII, what is PII, what is PII, what are the direct identifiers is a way to start the conversation around data privacy, and what are the responsibilities of researchers in protecting patient privacy. You can also add these tools, think about how you can add these tools to a LibGuide. We linked to a couple examples here, one on a guide on de-identification tools and then another on data management. Go to the next slide now. And there are there are so many research and data themed weeks now that it's almost hard to keep track of them all. There's no end for inspiration or ideas. Many of these different themed weeks will have promotional toolkits so you don't have to start from scratch. Love Data Week is one where it has different themes every year, so you can think about how to lean into the different themes. Maybe for Data Privacy Week, you can emphasize how de-identification tools support privacy and can make text HIPAA compliant. For Open Science Week, you can talk about how the NLM Scrubber is an openly available tool. All this to say, this doesn't have to be a big lift. You might already have programming around data or open science at your institution. And this is another tool that you can add to your belt and point researchers to. Next slide. And now maybe if you want to share, what do you think are some things that may work at your institution? Are there some ideas? You can either put this in the chat or you can mute yourself. Yeah, someone's mentioned Data Privacy Week. That is a cool one that I had also only learned about recently. Actually, I think right after it passed, unfortunately, this past January. I hope that, but yeah, I hope this has given you some ideas to think about. And if we go to our next slide, Katie. Yep. So the handout link that we shared earlier is to some talking points that you can share about the NLM scrubber. Um, and just as kind of to summarize also what we've talked about, the scrubber is an openly available tool. It can de-identify clinical text data. It is free and there's no subscription to use this tool. So when you're talking with library administration or library leadership, you can emphasize that several of these tools are free and that at least in the case of the scrubber will be remaining free. For clinicians, for researchers, you can emphasize that the scrubber can be used to make data HIPAA compliant, that could talk about data. De-identified data is more shareable and accessible. So also in accordance with the NIH's data management and sharing policy, the sharing data and engaging in good data practices increases and can also increase the impact of their research. And while it is an open tool and it's freely available and uses AI and natural language processing to identify and remove or redact potentially sensitive information, the human component, like human review, human involvement, and ensuring that data privacy is protected is essential. Yep. Thanks again for sharing the handout link, Katie. So we want to give a special thanks, take a quick moment to give a special thanks to Dr. Mehmet Caleb. He's in charge of creating the NLM scrubber, and he helped answer many of our questions as we were learning about the scrubber, how it works, and when we were creating this webinar. He and his team are currently working on a new version of the NLM scrubber. It's still several months out, but he'd welcome feedback on features that researchers would like to keep or what they might like to add. As it gets further along in development, we will also share more information about it. But thank you to Dr. Kilip. He's also on the call with us today. And we also especially want to thank Nikita. Nikita is a LAS student at University of North Texas, and she helped create this webinar as part of her internship with the NNLM Region 3. So thank you to both of them. Here are some suggested resources, which we can also share in the chat. And I think, Katie, are these on the handout?
Yes, these are on the handout too.
Yes, so they're also in your handout. But they will take you to the Scrubber's website. It's got a product guide and user manual, as well as some resources on what actually is personally identifiable information and how to work with data curation primers from about how to work with human subjects, participants' data. Here's a long list of references, and these are also in the handout, so or will be in the slides. And go to, finally, this contact and details for myself and Katie, and
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine.